Why does the black man serve the white man? Why does everything the black man do benefit the white man? Why does the black man say freedom is doing what I want to do? And why is it that everything he wants to do enriches the European?
Welcome to the desert of the real.
Peace, family. This is your brother, Mr. Holipsism, once again. Last video was about spirituality, because people was asking me about, well, what about spirituality? Well, now this video is about morality, because I've been asked the same question. Well, what about morality? Morality is subjective, and to me, there are universal principles of morality that apply to how we treat each other as a group, and morality that applies to the individual that the group doesn't have shit to do with. Um, the universal principles that apply to the group is the basis from which law is founded on. We don't need a codified text or book to tell us killing another person, unless it is in self-defense, is wrong. We don't need a codified text or book to tell us it's wrong to steal, commit consumer fraud, distribute poisonous and unsafe products and services to the people, or any other wrong that affects the public welfare. In other words, we know right and wrong in a universal sense before any codified text or book was written. And when I'm talking about we, obviously I'm referring to African people, because that's who the nation state is going to be for. Descendants of African slaves and victims of the transatlantic slave trade in America and throughout the diaspora. You know, the nation state is going to be a home for these disenfranchised people, just like Israel was a home for the Jews. And I always said this, we need our own Israel. So this is where I'm going with that. Um, you know, no one ever had to make a law telling us not to fuck animals. You notice that? You know, that this thought would even have entered into our mind, and that wouldn't have even entered into our mind in the first place. You know, it's similar to that scene in the Matrix when the Oracle tells Neo, "Don't worry about the vase," and then he turns around and he knocks it on the floor, breaking it. You know, then he says sorry and asks her how does she know, and she tells him, "What's really gonna bake your noodle later on is, would you have still broken it if I hadn't said anything?" So you know, when you have laws to tell people not to do obscene things, then obviously those people were doing those obscene things, and you actually had to make a law or put some type of code in there to make sure that they weren't doing it. You know, and I know we've come a long way and we've been surrounded by the Europeans for a while, but I really haven't seen a case yet. Maybe somebody can point it out to me where we're heavy into fucking animals. You know, I'm just using that one as an example. So I mean, basically what I'm trying to say is we know what's right and wrong innately as African people. You know what I'm saying? So that comes before any codified text or law. And I'm personally of the belief that a law is only an opinion backed by a gun. It's something that's backed by force. Law doesn't make people moral. What makes people moral is what's already inside of you. And when you're existing in a culture of people who are trying to maintain their culture, trying to maintain a good way of life, and trying to have um, the best for themselves and their people, I think that establishes morality more than somebody in a book saying, don't do this and don't do that. You know? Now, morality for the individual is trickier. This is usually where religion tries to impose itself. An example of that would be infidelity, fornication, how you worship and practice your religion, how you dress, how you express yourself, who you have sex with, who you marry, etc. All things the government has nothing to do with. Morality for the whole are based on universal principles and culture and not on any religion. This is important because if you claim universal principles derived from religion, then the discussion becomes what religion? Then the battle begins over which religion is the quote unquote true religion, and then everything starts to fall apart. Hence the reason and the purpose of separation of church and state. The purpose of government is unity, justice, domestic tranquility, defense, promotion of the general welfare of the citizens, and securing individual liberty and privileges for all. Not rights, because rights can't be taken away from you. Only privileges can be. So when people say, "Oh, I have a right," you don't really have a right. If you had a right, nobody can take it, especially a God-given right. You always say, "Oh, I have a God-given right." Well, if that's the case, how can somebody take your right away from you if it's God-given? You have privileges. Now, the government exists for its citizens. The citizens do not exist for the government. This is why, unless checks and balances and hardcore principles are embedded into the foundation of your government, you will end up with America 2.0, going down the same road that this country went through and ending up in the same place. Personally, when I look at governments that work, the best country is the one which has the ability to provide affordable education, a safe environment, lower unemployment, better life expectancy, plenty of resources, free from corruption, social support, health, freedom, and highest per capita income. And there's more, but that's the basic gist. Among all these aspects, happiness is the key factor that determines whether a country is the perfect place to live or not. Now, if you notice, there's one glaring omission from that list. You want to take a guess what it is? Religion. Why? Because religion is a personal choice that has nothing to do with governance. You know? So once again, the only morality I'm concerned about is morality that affects the general public, their safety and their welfare. Individual morality is not the domain of government. There are a multitude of things that would be considered immoral that would not be considered illegal or a punishable offense, like cheating on your wife. You can say that's immoral. Screwing a lot of women out of wedlock. You can say that's immoral. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of things that people are personally offended by morally that other people do, but you're not going to throw that person in jail. So honestly, if it is not, as far as the architects of a new nation, it's not something relevant to the discussion. You know? Now, speaking of morality in a sense, um, some people believe in the death penalty. And I'm like, okay, cool. This is my position on capital punishment. If you want to make that a thing in your new nation, if you want to make that a thing where people get put to death by the state, then my position is everyone should have fear of being put to death, not just poor people. Government officials should be the first heads on the guillotine, along with the CEOs of major corporations, and fraud should be an offense worthy of capital punishment. Also, if an innocent person is put to death, then all of the people involved in their death should either be put to death as well or spend time in jail for murder. Now, you talk about incentive to cross the T's and dot the I's. That's incentive like a motherfucker for you. Because you're going to make sure that person is truly guilty, because your head could be rolling right next to theirs, or your ass could end up in jail if you make the wrong decision. I bet you if we had a policy like that, people wouldn't be so amped up to install capital punishment in their law system. It's always easy to kill when you have a comfortable distance and no personal stake in the decision. Even if you make a mistake, oh wow, that was messed up what we did to that guy. All right, next. No, 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 no. When you have to put your own ass on the line for the decisions that you make, then you have a vested interest to look at all angles and make damn sure you're making the right decision. Like I said, checks and balances embedded into the foundation. That's just an aside. But people throw that capital punishment because people is quick to, well, if you steal something, we cut your hand off and all this barbaric shit. All right, as long as you are held to those same standards, fine. But we're not going to be killing poor people. We're not going to be America 2.0 because that's all that goes to jail in America. Black men, and usually when you see black men freed by DNA evidence later on, it's usually the majority of people freed by DNA evidence is black men. You know, maybe one white person, two, couple other minorities sprinkled in there, but for the most part, we're the ones that get put in jail for bullshit the most. Now, the beautiful part about having a secular government is that women don't have to worry about all the baggage that comes with the dogma of theocracy and religion. There's no codified patriarchal text a sane government will be drawing from. Women will be able to hold high offices within the government if they choose to, and be able to affect policy within the nation by virtue of being represented in the government. Everyone will be able to compete in a true meritocracy and technocracy because skills and ability will be the determining factors in our government. So they are boy geniuses and they are girl geniuses, and they both have an equal chance of holding a high position within the government. So I think I made a pretty strong case for separation of church and state. I won't beat that dead horse anymore. If people want to talk about morality, I feel the biggest moral issue is making sure the government exists for the people and not the people existing for the government. Tax revenue is for the infrastructure, maintenance, and social safety nets, health care, etc., for the public safety, protection, and peace of mind. Tax revenue is not for lining the pockets of career politicians. Money should not be involved in politics. You see what the United States did, and you see the position that we're in right now. When a man who makes $1 billion in the private sector decides he wants to spend millions, sometimes billions of dollars running for a position in government that only pays $400,000 a year, you have a corrupt system. That dude is not a patriot for your nation. He's attempting to put himself in a better position to make more money. If your concern is morality, then avoid this from happening by not having money in politics as a principle and embed that into the foundation of your government. Now, I was looking some of the best countries, online. I was looking at reports taken from the UN, and it's called the World Happiness Report. And it says that Denmark ranked first on the list issued by World Happiness Report because it has zero crime rates, murder, no corruption, and stability and economic growth, quality of life, etc. All these things made it as one of the best and happiest and safest countries to live in the world. They have nearly 18 weeks of paid leave is given to mothers, and 79% of women are working, which is comparatively high than other countries. People in the country are more concerned about their environment, and they follow excellent health care system. Just to close this, I believe in the philosophy of Bruce Lee. Research your own experience, absorb what is useful, reject what is useless, and add what is specifically our own or your own. And I believe that's what we need to do when it comes to the formation of our government. Because ultimately, the BAIO social network and all of this coming together and networking of people of like minds, we're actually building a social network, and we're forming our own government. So right now, if you join the BAIO social network, you're actually involved in the process of forming a government. Remember what I said. The BAIO is an organization. An organization cannot be a nation. So it's a means to an end. And the end is to actually have a government and a nation, nationhood, land, and infrastructure. The things I've been talking about. So I hope I touch, I hope I covered the morality thing. I know I kind of went off a little bit, but I hope I covered it enough for you. And if anybody has any other further deeper questions on morality, just hit me up and I'll try to cover it in the next video. I'll talk to you good people later. Peace.